Muslim Community Radio, broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Good afternoon and welcome to Keep Women Talking, a show from Peterborough Women's Aid. My name is Mandy and I am your host today, and I am joined by my co-host Sue. Hello Sue.
Hiya.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
So it's been a while, isn't it, since we've been on?
It has, for one reason and another. We had bank holiday, didn't we, where we would have had our normal show, so we missed that one.
Yep, but we are back and we're ready and raring to go. So what we are going to talk about today, we've got a couple of things. The main topic for today's show is, what do you do if you think that a relative, a friend, a colleague potentially is in an abusive relationship? So we are going to give you some kind of hints and tips and do's and not do's, and have a discussion around that. Our question of the day, I think, is quite controversial.
So do I.
I do. And I actually don't know my own answer to this one. So the question of the day is, wolf whistling, is it a compliment or a threat? Sue, I'm going to go over to you first. What do you think?
So I researched this before I came
Oh,
out.
okay.
Because I find this a really tricky one to answer. Because I can't remember the last time I was wolf whistled at, donkey's years ago. Probably an age thing. But I also remember feeling quite flattered at the time. But it was a sole wolf whistle. I carried on walking, didn't really acknowledge it, and all the rest of it. But when I was researching, I found that even in the research that had been done, they said that age does come into it. And they were finding that whilst the older people didn't think much of it, thought that yes, you just take it as, you know, a little bit of flattery and move on, it was the younger generation, sort of the 18 to 24 year olds, that found it more sexist and unappealing. Because when they did some research, I mean, this is going back a few years, the only thing I could find was back in 2017, they found that 56% of Britons, not splitting this by gender, considered wolf whistling a compliment and just a bit of harmless fun. And only 23% considered it to be sexist and completely unacceptable. And then 21% sat on the fence and couldn't make their mind up which way. But yeah, then I looked on further, and it was very much, rather than being split by gender, it was being split by age. So it was the younger people, the younger adults, that were finding it to be offensive, where the older adults were quite happy just to let it go.
Interesting.
And I think it does, from my opinion, I think it depends on the circumstances, where you are, and whether it's a sole wolf whistle, whether there's comments that come with it, whether it's a group of men.
Yeah, because there is this, I'm going to be honest, this question came from my partner who works in the building trade.
Right.
So there is a stereotype, I think, around being wolf whistled at by builders on scaffolding. You know, you walk past and you get type thing. And he felt that was a massive stereotype, and that most of, not if all, of the building sites that he's worked on, that's like never ever happened. That's just what people think, but it never happens.
And I think it has dropped in its occurrence as times have moved on, and people have realised that actually women who that happens to can find it intimidating.
Yeah.
And makes them feel very uncomfortable.
I, like you, haven't been wolf whistled for about 30 years, I think. And if I was now, I'd probably turn around and clap and say, thank you very much. But it's very doubtful.
And I think that's the thing. I think when you think about the stereotypical recipient of those wolf whistles, you're talking young female.
You are talking young female.
And you're possibly slipping into the school age female as well, which is obviously a lot of girls these days can appear a lot older than what they actually are. So I think it's very wary ground to be on anyway.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? And we must also remember that women, girls, wolf whistle at men stroke boys, don't they? When I've seen my partner, maybe not now, but he might be strutting his stuff walking towards me, I might give him a quick and it's all fun and games and whatever, and I'm sure he doesn't feel threatened by it. I feel he probably feels it's a compliment, but it does go both ways, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to hear your view, because Sue and I, this is a tricky one.
It is.
So wolf whistling, is it a compliment or a threat? You can get in touch with us by calling on 01733 602 133. You can text in the show on 074 119 1062. Or if you are listening on Facebook, YouTube, X or Twitch, you can just comment, and then we would love to know what you think about this one. I still don't know what Twitch is. I say this every time.
Still not looked into
We need to Google Twitch, don't we? Okay, so
what's been going on at Peterborough Women's Aid, Mandy?
Lots.
An update.
Lots has been going on. So our community groups are going really, really well. We've got 2 going on. So we have Women Warriors on a Tuesday, 10:30 till 12, 32 Cromwell Road, and that's like a wellbeing group. Make friends. We have a wellbeing coach come in. Lots of activities, and that has been really busy, especially during May half term. Yeah, so busy.
It's really good, and that's about building those friendship, empowering women, building self-confidence.
Yes. Yep.
And just being there for one another.
Yeah. Really popular group. And then on a Friday we have Women Warriors with aprons, which is the same, but it's got a bit of an arts and crafty feel about it. So, yeah, again, really popular group. And just to emphasise, all women are welcome to these groups. You don't have to have been a victim of abuse. It's just about women getting together and spending time with each other. The next thing we've got going on is that we are finalists at the community... Hang on, the Peterborough... Is it the Telegraph?
No, Peterborough Community Business Awards.
Sorry, no, why do I keep saying Peterborough Community Business Awards for Charity of the Year. And the award ceremony is happening on the 20th of June at the Marriott Hotel. So we're super excited. There's a few of us going from Peterborough Women's Aid. We're really hopeful we're going to win.
Keeping everything crossed.
Everything crossed. So we're looking forward to that. We had our first... of the year, actually, culturally inclusive coffee morning at Anne's house. And that is mainly aimed at the South Asian community, bringing South Asian women together. And we had Mariam from Cultural Connect come and do some wellbeing activities. It was supported by the Raham Project and Peterborough Women's Network, who a lot of people might know has a massive Facebook following. And that was last Monday, and we had about 15 women attend. And some beautiful food.
We like a bit of good food, don't
we do. So we're going to repeat that in a few months, because that's a really successful way of bringing members of the South Asian community together.
It's just got a really nice atmosphere about it, hasn't it?
Yes.
People just come, have a chat, have a drink,
yep,
have a bit to eat. It's just a really nice, informal way to have a chat to people, perhaps make some new friends.
Yep. Yeah, really, really positive kind of event. And then we've got some big fundraisers this year. So we've got the Great Eastern Run, which I'm running, stroke jogging, stroke walking this year. Last year I did it properly. This year I'm not doing it properly, and I'm going to be dressed up, and it's all going to be for fun. We've got a small team of runners. So if you can raise £150 for the half marathon, we will pay your entrance fee, which is actually 42 quid, so that's a bit of a bargain. And if you can raise £75 for the Fun Run 5K, we will pay your entrance fee for that. So we're looking for runners. We want a huge team of Peterborough Women's Aid runners. If you would like to run for us, you can go on our website, and there's like a general inquiries form. Fill that in, it will come to me, and then we can get you all set up and ready to go. So we really need runners. We want to... last year, we were the biggest charity there. We want to be like the biggest charity there this year.
It'd be lovely if we can achieve that again.
It would be brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then we have our charity football match, which is arranged by some fabulous ladies, with a few links to Peterborough United women's team. And shout out to Georgina, who does all of this and arranges it, and it's magnificent. So this is on the 21st of June. The gates open at 12:30 and it's at Peterborough Rugby Club. So there's going to be loads of stuff. There's bouncy castles, there's ice cream vans, there's food, there's tombola.
So there's a raffle.
There's a raffle. It's going to be a really fabulous family day out. And then at 2:00, the actual football match kicks off. And we do have some Peterborough United ladies players playing for us. So that is just amazing. So if people want to come down and meet the players, support Peterborough Women's Aid, we would love to see you there. Last year was brilliant. This year's going to be
I went to
even
the event
better.
last year, and it was just an absolutely brilliant day out for the family. So much to do, so much fun. And the weather was amazing last year, which obviously helps.
So a date for everyone's diary, 21st of June. Gates open 12:30, Peterborough Rugby Club. So, question of the week, wolf whistling, a compliment or a threat? Please let us know what you think. Call us on 01733 602 133, text 074 119 1062, or comment on our Facebook if you're listening to us through Facebook, YouTube, X or Twitch. Just want to say, Sue, our last show on Salam had over 2,100 views on YouTube. Yes, it did.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. So whoever is listening to us, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah,
and we're so happy about that, because we want to spread the word about what Peterborough Women's Aid is doing, and we also want to spread the word about awareness about domestic abuse. So if you're watching, if you are listening back on YouTube, please... I don't know what you do. Do you subscribe or share? Or I've got no idea. But hello, if you're listening on YouTube.
Keep watching.
Keep watching. Yes, keep watching. So, today's topic is, what do you do if you think that maybe a colleague, a friend, a family member is in an abusive relationship? So...
This is a really tricky one, because you don't always notice things. It's really hard to notice things sometimes, or things can be very, very subtle. And sometimes it's a gut feeling more than anything else. And I think we know from our experience that it's very much behind closed doors that things occur. So you might notice... you might, if it's a neighbour, for example, you might hear arguments, you might hear shouting, banging or screaming, things like that. Sometimes things do slip out. Perpetrators are very good at masking, not showing their true selves. So they've probably, been manipulating people around them for years and years and years. So very often we've seen even professionals who are perpetrators who portray themselves as this lovely, kind, community-based people, but behind the closed doors, when they're with that partner, it's a very, very different story.
So is that the first thing to, I suppose, make note of, is that anyone can be a perpetrator of abuse? There's no kind of stereotype.
No stereotype. Doesn't matter how much your income is, doesn't matter whether you're working class, whether you're middle class, makes no difference whatsoever.
And we've had some examples of people that are perpetrators that maybe you wouldn't think. So we've had judges, we've had police officers.
Teachers.
We've had religious leaders. So I think, like you say, a lot of the time we would maybe make an assumption that because of that person's career or standing in the community, oh, surely they can't be a perpetrator. But actually, from our experience, literally anyone can, can't they?
Anyone whatsoever. That's it. I mean, there's obviously the obvious signs if someone's being physically abused, which is probably the one thing that people think of first. If they turn up to work, for example, covered in bruises, you might go, oh, what's happened? Where's this bruise come from? And the other sign when you're with someone is that they might be being stalked or harassed at work. One story that lives with me is that someone's partner would ring them at work just to check in on them, see how they're doing, and then they say, oh, well, I'll come and pick you up. And that can be genuinely be nice and a kind thing to do, don't get me wrong. But in that situation, he was actually stopping her from getting on the bus and stopping her from communicating with anyone else. So he would take her to work in the morning. She'd literally walk in the building. He'd ring her through the day to check in and see how she's doing. And then he would pick her up from the door of the office building in the evening and take her home again.
And that was to keep her isolated.
Yes.
And do you think it was to keep the abuse hidden?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was keeping control of her so that she couldn't talk to someone on the bus. She couldn't go out for a quick drink after work.
Yeah. And just going back to these physical injuries, so you've said that people might, turn up for work with bruises or whatever. And as a colleague, you might say, what's happened? Are you okay? What's the likelihood of a victim just kind of coming out with it and saying, actually, it was my partner that did this?
I think there is that possibility, depending on your relationship with them and how comfortable and how safe that they feel. But very often they will make excuses.
Okay. So we've had some really common ones. I fell down the stairs. I hit my head on a kitchen cupboard.
Yeah.
I
walked into a door.
I was playing with the children and the 2-year-old punched me in the eye.
Yeah.
We've had quite a lot of that, haven't we? Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
But I think sometimes it comes back to that gut feeling, or if the story changes quite regularly and quite a lot, or these injuries are showing up quite frequently.
Okay. So there's two things there. It's about seeing physical injuries, and then you've talked about noticing potentially that a family member, colleague, friend is being isolated through stalking, text messages, like you say, picking up, dropping off from work, that kind of stuff.
That's it. And if you see the couple together quite regularly, you may start to pick up on things between them. There might be little remarks from him that are sort of whispered in her ear, and then, she may not be able to hide the look of fear on her face, for example. Or he may make belittling marks and make out that they're a joke. And again, I think a lot of the time it comes down to that gut feeling and knowing that couple and knowing who they are.
I remember working with one lady who, like me, so my real name is Amanda, but I prefer Mandy. But the perpetrator insisted on calling her Elizabeth, but she preferred Beth.
Yeah.
And it was very noticeable when you were in a social situation.
When everyone else
Her by the short and we talk about kind of belittling and stuff, and that's kind of what it felt like, because he was calling her something he wanted to call her, not her choice of name. So very, very controlling behaviour.
That's it. And the victim may look uncomfortable, they might look embarrassed, they might look upset, or might just look very fearful or anxious. Because very often, if they're deemed to have misbehaved, if you like, outside the home, there'll be that threat of a consequence when they do get home.
Okay.
Things to notice, like, for example, if they go into a new relationship, you might suddenly find that the victim stops spending time with people.
Okay, so I'm going to pause there, because when this is something, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but I just want to say this before I forget. If you go into a new relationship, and we've talked about this briefly before, but if you are concerned about the behaviour of your new partner, you can apply for Clare's Law, can't you?
Yes.
And you can do that through the police online. And
do you want to explain what Clare's Law is?
Yeah, so Clare's Law is a system that came about after the death of a woman. She was shot, I believe. I believe she was shot. And in a nutshell, the perpetrator had a very long history of being abusive in previous relationships. And the parents of Claire felt that if Claire had had that prior knowledge, she would have not entered in that relationship, which
That's it, or she would have ended it a lot sooner.
Which obviously she was killed by him. So Clare's Law is a way of people that get into new relationships asking the police to kind of do a background check as to whether or not they have been perpetrators of domestic abuse. The police will give you that information, but they will not give you the information about any other offences. So it has to be domestic abuse related. And we do encourage a lot of our clients, when they're going into a new relationship where they are in a vulnerable situation because they've been a victim before, to maybe think about doing a Clare's Law on their new partner, just to reassure them.
If you've got any concerns whatsoever, even if it's the slightest red flag that you're thinking, oh, that doesn't quite sit right, you know, it's no effort. You can apply online.
Yep.
For it as well, which makes it quite easy. You don't actually have to speak to anyone. But yeah, well worth doing if you've got any concerns whatsoever.
Yeah. Sorry, I just completely. You were going.
That's
you were
okay.
you were saying about new relationships.
Yeah, so new relationships. It might be that the victim suddenly stops seeing people. So we've talked quite a lot about isolation, which is one of the most common things that perpetrators do. So that they might stop seeing family, they might stop seeing friends, and they may appear to become very reliant on that perpetrator. They might just get quieter than usual.
So by quieter, you mean maybe not responding on messages, on group chats?
That's it. Or perhaps they just don't see themselves. They might appear to be nervous or anxious. You know, just that slight shift in their behaviour when they are with you, because they may well be concerned that actually you're seeing something and you might start to question them, and then they don't know how to respond to that.
Right, okay. And interestingly, we've got here, they might struggle to make eye contact. Why do you think that is?
Again, I think because it's that fear that you may see almost into their soul and see that they're not quite themselves, that they're perhaps feeling that anxiety. Okay, so I've got another question for you. So, as this victim, you're anxious, you're quieter, you're being isolated. Why don't you want anyone to know? Because there's a massive fear of the consequences. If you speak out against that person, you know that you don't know how the other person's going to react. Yep. Whether you're going to be believed. You don't know whether they're suddenly going to go, right, I'm going to go and talk to them. And then your secret, if you like, has been put out there. But you know that when you go back home, there will be consequences. And we're talking really severe consequences. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of women that are killed each year through domestic abuse or take their own lives through suicide. But we're talking that it's a really serious consequence, and it's kind of like for a victim, it's like their safety plan is to keep quiet, isn't it? Because they know if they tell anyone to keep themselves alive. Yeah, it's literally a life or death situation. And it's not necessarily they go home and they get murdered. It might not be that they go home and get beaten up. It might be that they're starved of food. Yep. It might be that they're locked in a cupboard. You know, it's not necessarily physical signs that can be. It might be that there's that constant threat. Or money's taken away. Yeah, money's taken away. Yeah. They don't get day-to-day essentials. You know, they may not be able to give them money and to be able to go and buy sanitary products. So then they have to deal with that. And I suppose this is bad enough, isn't it? Being the victim in this situation, you're absolutely petrified that someone's going to find out that you're in an abusive relationship because of the consequences of what might happen to you. But then imagine if you've got children. Yeah. So that's like massively exacerbated, isn't it? In terms of actually, I don't want anyone to find out because what might he do to my children? Yeah. What might he do to my children? My children will be taken away from me. I'll never see my children again. I may be deported. And again, he may take control of the children, kick me out the house.
Yeah.
There's so many additional threats when you've got children.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're looking at the signs that people might see in their friends, colleagues, family, if someone is being a victim of domestic abuse. And we're going to carry on with this after the ad break. But our question of the week is, wolf whistling, is it a compliment or a threat? So we want to hear from you. The numbers have disappeared off my screen, so I can't give you them. But if you are on Facebook,
them after the break.
Yeah, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can just comment and then I can see it. I also just want to say that if anything we're talking about is affecting you, you can call our helpline, PWA helpline 01733 894 964, or you can go on our website and you can contact us through web chat. We will be back in a few moments.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
2020 World Buffet is inspired by the best foods from around the world. See our teppanyaki chefs grill your food to order, or choose delicious Indian, Italian, Chinese, Mexican dishes and British favourites, all halal. 2020 World Buffet offers you unlimited food at a set price. Open 7 days for lunch and dinner. Catering, wedding and party services available too. Call 01733 566 320 or visit 2020buffet.co.uk. 2020 World Buffet, 35 New Road, Peterborough, PE1 1FJ.
Home or business, protect what matters most with a bespoke security system from H-Secure Tech. CCTV, intruder and fire alarms, and access control too. 5-star Google-rated H-Secure Tech install them all, with 24-hour and mobile app monitoring, keeping your business safe and your loved ones protected. To discuss your specific requirements, call 01733 590 201 or visit hsecuretech.com.
Craving a heavenly escape in the heart of Peterborough? Heavenly Desserts is the perfect place to relax with friends, unwind with family, or for casual meetings with colleagues. You can now indulge in our delicious brunch menu with mouth-watering savoury delights, served from 11 a.m. every day. Visit us today at Cowgate, Peterborough, the go-to spot for good times and great company. Where else but Heavenly's? Party packages available for birthdays and other celebrations. Also available to order through Just Eat, Deliveroo and Uber Eats.
Gladcare is your community support centre, delivering services you need. Access free English classes for reading, writing, speaking and listening, or a computer course with CV writing, qualified immigration advice and more, including food parcels or supermarket vouchers. Gladcare can help. Also for free yoga and health for you sessions and monthly coffee mornings with local GPs on site. 316 Gladstone Street and online at gladcare.org.uk. Call 01733 566 343.
Busy Bunnies Nurseries is where children grow and thrive. It's where your little ones will enjoy expert care, engaging activities and a warm, welcoming environment. Busy Bunnies Nurseries also provide great learning experiences in exceptional indoor and outdoor settings. So when looking for a loving, fun and safe place for your child, visit at 627 Lincoln Road, Peterborough, now with additional parking, or online at busybunniesnurseries.co.uk. Call 01733 897799 to book your visit today. Busy Bunnies Nurseries, where children hop into a brighter future.
बेहतरीन कीमतों में काबिले भरोसा टैक्सी। जी हाँ, अमार कैब से रोजमर्रा का सफर हुआ आसान। सिर्फ £3.99 से शुरू। हीथ्रो एयरपोर्ट के लिए £120, गेटविक £150, बर्मिंघम £92, लंदन स्टैनफोर्ड एंड लंदन लूटन के लिए £88। हम प्राइवेट स्कूल रन्स और एग्जीक्यूटिव बिजनेस क्लास ड्रॉप ऑफ्स भी देते हैं। बुकिंग बहुत आसान। हमारी वेबसाइट www.amarcabs.com पर जाएं, 01733555888 पर कॉल करें या हमारी ऐप डाउनलोड करें। iOS और एंड्रॉइड दोनों पर अवेलेबल है। चंद ही क्लिक्स में आपकी टैक्सी बुक हो जाएगी। आरामदेह और कम कीमत सफर की बेहतरीन चॉइस, अमार कैब्स।
This is Salam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim community radio. Broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Good afternoon. You are listening to Keep Women Talking, a show from Peterborough Women's Aid. My name is Mandy and I'm joined by my co-host Sue. Hello, Sue. So, before the break, we are talking about what would you do if you felt a family member, a friend or a colleague was in an abusive relationship. So we're going to carry on with that. And our question of the week is, wolf whistling, is it a compliment or a threat? And we have had a response on Facebook from Anne. And Anne has put, I think it is intrusive. And I just don't think it is okay for, as whoever is doing it does not know what effect it has on the individual. She says, I don't have a problem with someone saying to another person they look nice on a one-to-one basis, but not publicly wolf whistling. It just doesn't sit right with me. Thank you, Anne. Anne has strong views about wolf whistling, which I think a lot of people probably do, actually. I think...
and I think you're right, like you said earlier, when you were on about your partner and he hadn't seen it being in that kind of work area. And I think it is one of those things where it doesn't happen very often these days.
I think things have progressed generally in the world, haven't they, in terms of it's not appropriate, it's not right.
And I think they realise it's about the individual that it's aimed at rather than them.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think
whether it be received well or not.
Yeah, and especially, you know, I've got all boys, but I would imagine if I had daughters and a grown man was wolf whistling at them, I might have a few words with him and just say that's not appropriate there. Okay, so does anyone else want to get involved in this? Or a wolf whistling, a compliment or a threat? You can call us on 01733 602 133, text on 07111 91062, or comment on all of our live streams, Facebook, YouTube, X or Twitch. So, Sue, we're talking about what you would do if you felt you knew someone who was in an abusive relationship. So let's carry on that conversation.
So we were talking about changes in behaviour that you might see from a victim. So we talked about perhaps reducing the amount of time that they're spending with you or other friends or family members. We've talked about them perhaps being quieter than normal, perhaps seeming nervous or anxious or even scared, struggling to make eye contact. And then you might also see that they receive a lot of messages.
Okay.
So, they may well have their mobile phone. It's that relentless messaging that comes through. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And whilst in some ways it can be seen as making sure that they're safe and they're well, and yes, we all like to know where our partner is and what they're doing to make sure that they're okay through the day. But it's when it gets to that excessive amount, that you need to be wary and you need to be sort of a bit more aware of. It can also start to have long-term effects as time goes by and they're in these relationships and this abuse is happening, and the victims, having to survive through those moments, living day to day, living on eggshells. You may start to see physical, emotional and mental health problems start to appear.
Okay.
So their mental health may deteriorate quite drastically.
Okay.
They may become quite distressed. Their emotional stability may disappear. Their physical health can also deteriorate. And we're not necessarily talking from physical abuse and from bruises and broken bones and being hit and punched or pushed down the stairs or whatever. It may well be that they start to develop stomach problems. Their skin, for example, may become inflamed, or they may start having trouble with acne and things like that. They may start to lose weight. And it's all those
or I suppose gain weight, if that's a comfort thing. Yeah,
absolutely. It can go either way. And things like they may develop eating disorders, for example, because they may feel so out of control in other elements of their life. The one thing that they may be able to control is what they put in their mouth
Yep.
or don't put in their mouth. So they may develop, numerous eating disorders as well.
And
They
then
may struggle with sleep,
yeah.
and may look and feel really, really tired.
And then I was just going to say, so there may be signs of self-harm.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So as a friend, as a family member, as a colleague, I am getting concerned about that person. So we've talked about how the victim might present, but what about the abuser's behaviour?
Yeah, so you might see or hear someone with these abusive behaviours. And it's really, really important to call them out on it.
Okay.
And to, ask them why they think that's okay, what they're doing. But we know from experience that abusers will very often try and shift the blame.
Okay.
So very often they'll try and blame the victim.
Right.
That they've done something and they've just reacted to it. They won't take any responsibility for their behaviour whatsoever. It will always be someone else's fault. Whether that's, they lose their job and that's not their fault. That was their boss's fault.
Right, okay.
Or that was because this colleague did this, this and this. And it's the same in a personal relationship. It might well be, well, they were late home and I had to be somewhere. So
Right.
that made me angry.
Yep.
So I lashed out.
Okay.
And then, like I say, they very often try and shift that blame onto the survivor. So it's like, you shouldn't have been drinking. Look at what you're wearing. You're wearing provocative clothes. You
Yep.
shouldn't be going out like that. I've had a stressful day at work. My mental health's not very good, but you're causing that. You're adding to that. So you cause me to behave in that way.
Yeah. I used to work with perpetrators of domestic abuse, and we used to look at statements made by perpetrators, and they would generally fit into three categories, which was minimisation, denial and blame. So they would either deny that they were doing an abusive action, they would minimise it by saying, oh, it wasn't that bad, she's exaggerating.
Yeah.
Or like you said, they would literally blame someone else or blame the victim or blame the child for their abuse, never taking responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah. And very often abusers are seen from the outside to have quite high expectations. So they might set these expectations on their partner, such as the way they dress or how they parent their children, for example, how they do the housework, how the house always needs to be immaculate, and spotlessly clean. But they will have a very different behaviour in terms of that. So they may not dress immaculately.
Yep.
They may not be fussed about the house being clean and tidy. They won't bother to, to hoover the floor or to wipe that side because that's not their job. But they will expect the victim to do that and clean up and tidy up after them.
And I suppose then the children to present in a certain way to meet his expectations.
Yeah. But again, he doesn't contribute or to help towards that.
Yeah.
And then you may see things in terms of the children, if you have got children within the family, that they might be expected to behave more maturely than their age. They might be given responsibility for looking after younger children, and just things that you wouldn't expect a child of whatever age to do.
Yeah.
And then signs in young children, which we've covered before, obviously children's behaviour can also change, and they might regress in terms of things like bedwetting, not being able to tie their shoelaces. Again, that anxiety may come out, and fear may come out in children as well.
And what about an abuser's behaviour towards you? So if you are the friend who's recognised that maybe a friend of yours is in an abusive relationship, or it's a colleague or a family member, how might the abuser behave towards you?
Yeah, so this is quite an interesting one because abusers can try different tactics with you as well. They've realised that you've got an inkling that something's not quite right. So they then might try the abuse on you. They might start being aggressive towards you. They might try being manipulative, get my words out, towards you. So you may start to see those traits come out as they try to manipulate you and gain control over you as well, so that, you know, you then don't talk to other people. Or they may suddenly become really nice and really kind.
Interesting, yeah.
And may go the other way, that actually they almost embrace you into this, and it's like, oh, so-and-so's suffering so badly with her mental health. I really need your help. I don't know what to do. She seems to be going crazy. She's losing the plot. She's saying all these things.
So it's like he's getting you on side against her type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they may switch between those things to try and figure out which one's going to work best, which one's going to get you on their side and get you to do what they want you to do.
Perpetrators are normally, from my experience of working with them anyway, will not only be aggressive or abusive to their partner or family members, you might see signs of it elsewhere. And I'll give you an example of a victim that I worked with who said that he was very kind, very approachable, very lovely in public, but they went on holiday once to a caravan and the toaster was broken. And he took it to reception, to report it. Because they didn't provide a new one, he absolutely kind of lost it and threw the toaster, and a real massive outburst of anger. So you will often see abusers will have these outbursts of anger in other situations as well. It's like they just cannot, if they lose control of a situation anywhere, potentially you might see these outbursts.
And it's that behaviour that's not in proportion with what's happened.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we see quite often is that they can be abusive towards family pets.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So, you might be a neighbour and you look over the garden fence out the back window or something, you might see them kicking the family dog. And that is another indicator that they could well be abusive.
And what is that about, Sue? Abusing pets? Is it about this control?
Yeah, so
still?
It all comes back to the power and control over another thing.
So kind of seeing, look what I can do to our dog. This could be you next, type thing. I don't care about the dog.
It's that threatening behaviour.
Yeah.
And that, this could be you. I could be kicking you next. I could be kicking one of the children.
I can do what
next.
I want, basically.
Yeah. I can get away with whatever I like. No one's going to do anything about it.
Okay. Right, so we've looked at the signs. So if you are a friend and you suspect a family member, a colleague, or your friend might be in an abusive relationship, we know what signs there are to look out for her. We also have talked about a few signs of identifying perpetrators. So imagine, Sue, that I have a friend who I'm really worried about, and she tells me, she says that she's in an abusive relationship. What do I do?
So I think the first thing is to always be there and to listen.
Okay.
Listening is one of the key things. And I think very often we say, I'm listening, I'm here. If you want to talk, I'll listen to you. But it's properly listening.
Tell me what that means.
So that's about allowing them the space and the time to talk, not taking over the conversation and not talking too much yourself, and making sure that they know that they matter, that you're listening to them, that you believe them, and reasserting to them that, it's not their fault, that, you've noticed a few things, you're coming to them because you're concerned about them. And I think in terms of well-being and mental health, as we are today, I think the message that comes across quite regularly is that you ask someone how they are and then you ask them again.
And why is that?
Because the first time, a lot of people automatically go, yeah, I'm fine, everything's good. But actually, if you ask again, they actually think, oh, you are actually interested. It's not just an automatic response.
Oh, I love that, because
and you are actually asking after them and their well-being.
Because it's really common, isn't it, in our world, I suppose, that we just say, "You're right, how are you?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm fine." Yeah. And actually inside you could be totally not fine, but you know that that person isn't really interested.
No, that's it. They're just passing the time of day. Yeah, definitely. So it's really important for them to know actually you do care and you are concerned. And it's okay to say to them, look, I've noticed these couple of bits.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay? Are things okay at home? Are things okay in your relationship? Mm-hmm. Is there anything, I can help with?
But the key thing is to listen really well, isn't it? Yeah. And there were some kind of tips in terms of making eye contact, having an open body posture in terms of like facing the person, just to let...
And having the right place and the right space to have that conversation. Yeah. You're not going to have that conversation in the middle of a coffee shop.
No, in the queue in Tesco's, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really important not to judge, not to blame them, and not to be critical.
And of course, we're talking so say if it's a friend, you might actually know that perpetrator really well. Yes. You might have gone out and socialised and stuff like that. So it may actually come as a real shock to you, like, yeah, but we know John. We've known John for years.
That's it.
There's no way he could be doing that to you.
You'd never do that.
So that's a really good tip. It's never to judge, is it? And never to make your own assumption just because, like you've said at the very beginning, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, do we?
That's it. And the second you go, oh, he'd never do that. No, that's not him at all. That person that you're talking to is then likely to just go in on themselves. Mm. And will probably think, oh, well, it's not, I've got no one I can share this with now. No one will believe me because John's such an amazing person. Yeah. Then they're not going to believe a word I say. And again, this is where we come back to very often in the outside world, they're a kind, genuine, generous person who's lovely to everyone else around them. They couldn't possibly hurt anyone else.
Okay. Okay, so we've talked about listening really well. I've got a little note here saying turning detective. What does that mean?
Yeah, don't start asking 20 questions.
Okay.
It's that don't start probing for details and, well, what happened? And then what happened? You have to give them the time and the space to be able to share what they want to share when they want to share it.
And that's really, we do this a lot with work, don't we? Because if you, my next point was, and this joins in with turning detective and offering too much advice, is that if someone discloses abuse to you and you begin to say, well, I tell you what you want to do. You want to do this, 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 and this, and this. Actually, you're turning into the controlling person in that conversation, and they've had years of being controlled. So it's not about telling someone, oh, you got to leave him. It is just purely about, like you've said, listening and not judging, isn't it?
And being there.
Yeah.
And that, and you can recommend organisations like ourselves. Why don't you contact Peterborough Women's Aid? They may be able to help you. They might be able to give you some advice.
I'm just going to say we've had a lovely message on Facebook. Faisal has put, this is really good advice. Thanks for the info. He loves listening to the show. He's normally in the car, but this time he had to stop and leave us a message.
Oh, that's
Thank
lovely.
you so much.
And it's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to sit there and go, I don't know. I don't know what you can do. But let's contact someone who may be able to help you. And it's about encouraging the person who this is happening to be able to make their own decisions and their own choices. It's not about going, I think you need to do this, I think you should do that, this is what I would do. Say, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that. These are your options, but they ultimately have to make that decision and have to make that choice. And
I think you have to be really aware as well, don't you, that you don't know how that victim is feeling and you don't know the absolute fear they probably have inside themselves because they've told somebody, and they could have been keeping this from you as a friend or a family or a colleague for years. And for someone who's a victim of abuse to disclose to somebody else is such a huge thing.
It is.
It's such
massive.
a huge thing. And they will be feeling sick, they will be anxious, they will be nervous, they will be
Because they
absolutely
don't know
petrified.
how you're going to respond.
Exactly. And this is why this advice is so important, because the last thing a victim wants is that you say to your friend, oh, I'm in an abusive relationship. Well, I'm going around the house. I'm going to have a word with him. I'm going to call 999.
Or you then go on and tell everyone around that person.
Exactly. So this is really, really important advice. So what kind of helpful things could I say if my friend had told me she was a victim? What kind of things might I say?
Yeah, so again, it's about saying that you believe them, that it's not their fault that the abuse is happening, regardless of what a perpetrator may say, that, oh, well, you were late home that day, that's why I behaved that way. No, the perpetrator chooses to behave that way. The perpetrator chooses to react that way. You can say that you're concerned and worried about them and that you want to help, and that you're happy for that person to speak to you again.
I think that's amazing advice. So because those two things for me is you're saying, I'm really worried about you. And that's probably for a victim the first time that anyone has actually acknowledged that. And to say that you can talk to me again means that the doors are open,
yes,
aren't they? Because we know that victims of abuse will try to leave up to 7 times before they actually leave. But to just leave those doors open and say, actually, there's no pressure here.
Yeah.
But
I'm not telling you, oh, you need to leave him.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I'm here. I'm here if you want to talk again.
Yeah. Fabulous. Okay.
So in terms of practical help, like I said, you can encourage them to contact support organisations. We can help with safety planning. For those that want to flee, we can make sure that has happened safely.
So I'm just backtracking a tiny weeny bit. So if my friend comes to me and says I'm a victim of domestic abuse, would it be appropriate for me to say to her, have you thought about talking to someone about it, like us,
Absolutely.
like Peterborough Women's Aid?
Because any organisation like ourselves is completely confidential.
Okay. And
that information doesn't go anywhere else.
And if it's her friend, if she was concerned about doing that and she wanted me, for example, to make the phone call with her or to come in and see a support worker with her, would I be able to do that as a friend or a colleague?
Absolutely.
So that would be fine.
Yeah.
As
long as that victim is happy for you to be there, is happy for you to accompany them to that appointment or to make that telephone call with them, absolutely fine.
Okay, so we've got to the point of I've listened, maybe my friend has said, oh yeah, I would like to get some professional help or just have a conversation with somebody that with no pressure and it's going to be confidential. Then what happens?
Yeah, so you then might be able to go on and support them, like you say, attending appointments, even hospital appointments or doctor's appointments, to help them get some support in terms of their mental health. And then you might be able to help the person with holding on to belongings. So should they decide that they want to flee that relationship, you may then be able to hold on to their identification documents. You might be able to hold on to some money for them, some cash. You might be able to hold a suitcase of clothing for them so that when that time comes, they have all that stuff out the house and it makes it safer for them to flee, but they've got all their necessary documents to move on. It might be that you look after their children occasionally, so that it gives them some space and time on their own to think things through.
Or maybe attend appointments or
Yeah, absolutely. It might be nice to offer them, well, why don't you come and stay at mine for a night? Give yourself a bit of time. It might, because if you are being abused and you are living on those eggshells all the time, sleep deprivation is probably massive. So, being somewhere else, having a safe space where you're able to actually relax may help you sleep better.
We have so many clients that just feel like they haven't slept for years. don't they? Because they're so anxious and so nervous and so scared and they're so drained, they just want to sleep, don't they?
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest things because they're living on that heightened emotional state constantly. It is exhausting, absolutely exhausting.
Yeah.
So like we said, if anyone's been affected by anything that we've discussed, you can call Peterborough Women's Aid on 01733 894 964.
You can. And if anyone has, we are here again in 2 weeks' time. We will be having a special guest with us. Next time, we have a survivor who is coming to tell her story, and we will get her some input from her as to when she disclosed what was the reaction from friends, families, professionals, so we can give you some more hints and tips about that. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your interaction on the show, and we will see you here in 2 weeks.